Hi everyone, thank you for tuning in. I'm Sophie. On behalf of Books and Books, it's my absolute pleasure to welcome you to a virtual evening with Angela Montoya and Dana Swift for Sinner's Isle, published by our friends at Joy Revolution. Join us as we explore the spellbinding romantic fantasy. Angela Montoya lives in Northern California with her family. She's the granddaughter of the celebrated activist and poet laureate Jose Montoya. When she isn't with her partner, two children, goats, chickens, and dogs, you can find Angela co-hosting of the Publishing Persuasion. To moderate this evening's conversation, Dana Swift started making up fantasy worlds when she was 11 years old and hasn't stopped since. She graduated from the University of Texas at Austin, where she earned degrees in English and advertising. Dana currently lives in Miami, Florida, where she works as a children's book buyer for Books and Books, the beloved local indie bookstore. Her debut, Cast in Firelight, and its sequel, Bound by Firelight, were published with Delacorte Press. Just a quick reminder that throughout this broadcast, you can post questions to the side in the Ask a Question feature. We'll do a Q&A at the end. I highly encourage your participation. Please order your copy of Sinner's Isle from Books and Books. There's a green button below where you can purchase. And now, without further ado, I'd like to welcome our guests to the virtual stage.
Yay!
Yay! How are you? Okay, everyone can hear, right? Perfect. Okay, so how are you?
I'm so good. I'm so stinking good, and I'm just really, really happy to be here with you in particular. So, yeah, I'm doing great.
Oh, it's good to hear that. I'm so glad.
Yeah. No, honestly, this is an honor to be here with you. Truly, I've been looking forward to this and very nervous about it, but mostly looking forward to it.
Is this your first virtual launch since the books come out, or have you mostly been in person, virtually?
Yeah, so I did one in-person event so far. It was my very first for my book thing, and I did it on the launch day, so on Halloween. It was really, really great and really fun. But this is the first thing I've done like this so far. I've done things like for my podcast, but it's always fun being on the reverse side of things where you're getting the questions asked. It's so different.
Yeah, I know you're such a star moderator, probably because you have that podcast and you're so great at that.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I like asking. I like, being nosy. So it's different being on the other end of it, but I love it.
Good. So you had a good launch day. It was on Halloween, which is like a holiday within itself, and now it's a holiday for Sinner's Isle as well.
Yeah, and it was my birthday too. So
What?
it was like yeah, so it was like a triple birthday, just
Wait.
really fun.
Are you serious? It was your birthday's Halloween, and oh my gosh. What's
Yeah.
the likelihood of that? That is
I know. I know.
I love that.
It was so like I remember when my publisher said, "Oh, your book's going to come out on Halloween." I was like, "Is this about me? Like, did you guys know?" And obviously they had no clue. But I was like, "Thank you." And they're like, "Oh, happy birthday." But it just meant like even more, it meant the world because it was like all just like just a super celebration in every single way.
Yeah. Well, you know how on all social medias it's like, it's my birthday, buy my book for my birthday. And now you're like, it's the anniversary of it coming out. Buy the book. It's my birthday.
Exactly. If you love me, if you care for me at all, buy my book.
Okay, you guys, hearing that right now, you gotta buy it. The green button's right there. Okay, so we'll stop cheering and we'll start getting to questions. But congratulations again. I'm just so excited. Since this is your debut, can we talk a little bit about your writing journey? Because most people it's like a wandering road, but we can gloss over, dig into how much ever you want. But I just want to hear how Sinner's Isle came to be.
Yes, it honestly, like writing kind of came to me not at random, but I'd never thought it was a thing I could do. I'd never thought I was like smart enough or creative enough or just enough. And so I never really like thought about it. But one day I had quit working, we had moved, and I was kind of just like in this weird limbo space. And my partner had brought it up like, "Well, you love books. Your family writes. Why don't you just try writing something?" And and that was like in the early 2017. And
Mm,
I stole his laptop. I didn't even have my own laptop. And
wow.
I just kind of like started clicking away. Like I love young adult fantasy in particular. It was one of those things that like bonded one of my younger sisters and I. And we'd go to the midnight premieres and all that stuff. So I've always just loved young adult fantasy, fantasy romance, romantic fantasy. And so I just knew, okay, well, that's what I'm gonna try and write. And I wrote and wrote, didn't know what I was doing. And I think I queried the first book I wrote. It got me nowhere. It was really bad. It's okay. But I learned a lot in that process. And so I put it down after querying for probably a year. And I was sitting there just thinking like, okay, well, what do I do now? Like, do I try and write something new? And so this idea for Sinner's Isle, for this witch and pirate fantasy romance, came to be.
Mm,
And that was in 2019, 2020.
wow.
And so I wrote it, and I like subbed it to Pitch Wars and got into Pitch Wars, which is a mentorship program. It is no more, but it really and truly changed everything for me. I wouldn't know how to handle an edit letter or revisions or anything if I didn't have that mentorship program. And after Pitch Wars, I started querying Sinner's Isle, and then I got my agent, and we went on submission, and I got picked up by Joy Revolution Books, which is like a dream come true beyond a dream, to be honest. I'd never even thought that was a possibility. And that was, I don't know. I don't know when that was, but here we are in 2023, and I debuted my book. And so it's been like, I wouldn't say it's like, like a quick road. It's been a long road. But it's been like just this steady journey of learning and like building community and making friends and like finding myself. And so I feel like I've told my friend like the book is amazing, and it's like the biggest accomplishment probably besides my kids, of course. But it's one of those biggest like accomplishments I've ever done. But along with that, like building a community and making friends like you, and just like getting to know other writers and bookish people has just been the best experience of my life, truly.
Oh, that's so great to hear. I'm so glad. Also, like, but 2017 to 2023, like, that's actually like I feel like the norm is like 10 years. So I feel like you did really well.
Good, thank you. I work hard. I work very, very hard.
Love hard work. Okay, so the first time I think we ever really talked on Instagram, I think you were on sub with Sinner's Isle. But I remember, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but I thought you said it was an adult fantasy that you were subbing. So am I crazy or did things change?
Yeah, you're not crazy. You're not crazy. You have a fantastic memory, in fact. So like for Pitch Wars, it was young adult romantasy.
Okay.
That's where I subbed it at, or for Pitch Wars. But then when I got my agent and we started kind of thinking about things, we're like, well, we could bump this up to adult and make it a little more adult in theme and situations. And so we subbed it as an adult. And then we kind of thought like my true heart is young adult. And so we're
Yeah.
like, well, let's try and see if maybe somebody will want it as a young adult, and we'll just pull it back. And that's what happened. And I'm so stinking glad, because I feel like it bringing it back, and like kind of it was a lot darker when I was subbing it. And like through revisions with Joy Revolution, like we got to kind of like not take out that darkness, but like find the joy and the hope that wasn't so much there at the beginning. So I'm forever grateful, to be honest, that we're in the young adult space.
Oh, okay, that's so like, it was YA, then you edited to adult, then you had to go back. Wow,
Yeah.
that's a process. Like, it just shows you how much of a process everything could be, and you never really know what's selling or how it sells until it's just like, "Okay, everyone wants it now." For sure.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like literally, I was like, whatever, I'm game for whatever. But it worked out in my benefit.
Now it's just, like, perfect. I find it's a perfect, like, crossover from YA to adult.
Yeah, thank you. That's my favorite. I love the
So for those out there that like that, it has some darker elements, but it's still firmly YA, but then, like, you get that romance that's, isn't super steamy, but then at the end I won't spoil anything, so
yeah.
but hopefully that's a little makes you wanna buy it and read it. Okay, so let's talk about our 2 main characters. Can you tell us a little bit about the inspiration for Rosalinda and is it Mariano?
Yeah. Yeah. Um
And I always get nervous.
Yeah, no, the inspiration for them, it came kind of out of nowhere, to be honest. Like I was in the shower and I was just like enjoying just a relaxing time. And then I just saw this like image of this beautiful young woman being prepared for something that she didn't want to be a part of. And I kind of just started like thinking in my head, like, what is this thing?
Mm.
Um, and at that time, I didn't think like magic or, like blessed by goddess, she's witch. I just thought like, who is this? Why doesn't she have any power? And I think because it was in 2020 and you're just so much of us, we were all feeling so powerless about so much. And so I just started to explore that a lot with her. And I just think of like how beautiful and powerful women are and how a lot of times that power gets stifled. And so I turned it into magic, into this thing that's like a little more tangible. And so that's where her inspiration came from. And funnily enough, in that same shower, I kid you not, uh, I saw like the image of Mariano and Santiago, who is his best buddy.
Fun.
And yeah, Santi is just this character a lot of people love and adore, and rightly so. But I saw those two guys stepping onto the shore of this remote island,
Mm.
and and they both looked so angry to be there. But I knew exactly who they were and what their relations were to possibly Rosalinda in the future or whatever. And so it just went from there. It truly went from there. And like Mariano, he's this like son of this pirate king, and so in like Latina culture, it's like machismo, like what it means to be a man. It's like tough and strong. But I wanted to kind of like break that a little bit and show what it is to, give into who you truly are. And so Santi was there to kind of show him and Rosa too. So really they came to me. I don't know how the writer universe was looking down upon me and I had just read like Big Magic. So I was like, okay,
Yeah, talks about just waiting for it to come to you.
I was like, hey, the story's here. I have to run with this. I don't want to give it up. So I just went with it, and it turned into something really, really fun.
That's so impressive that both, like, pivotal scenes of their character came to you.
Yeah,
Wow,
doesn't
okay.
happen to be sense, but
And why I asked that because 'cause they're both very much main characters, because this is dual point of view. And
yeah.
so, which point of view do you prefer? Which was easier to write, or were they challenging in their own?
Uh, I like them both for so many different reasons. Like I feel so connected to Rosa and the girls, the other Majestics, and I love their relationships, and I loved watching Rosa like fight for her for her life, really. And so a lot of her scenes were easy but also hard because of what she was going through and dealing with in the story. For Mariano's scenes, like they were really fun. I think because he is like a pirate and there's like a little bit he's a little more loose of what he can do on the island. And then of course Santi, who I've mentioned before, is he's a funny character. So I enjoyed them both, but for very, very different reasons.
Yeah. And they had very different like emotions going through them. Like so it was always very distinct which chapter I was in.
Good.
And I'm very impressed that you were always able to alternate them like perfectly. Like you never faltered. There was never Rosalinda. There was like it perfectly went back and forth, but it was so well balanced and well paced. So like I guess as an author who does also do point of view, I always cheat that when I'm like, and I always tell other authors you can cheat that. But how did you do that so perfectly?
I think if I remember like right, because it feels like my brain has stopped working, but I feel like a lot of that came the dual POV, like going from one character to the other per chapter, was with Margie Fuston in Pitch Wars, because I feel like I want to say I didn't have as much Mariano in the original version.
I see.
And she like sat down with me and broke down chapter by chapter, like scene by scene, and she thought like, why let's get them both in there equally and like pull and play. And so I think I have to give her a lot of credit, and like my editor Bria a lot of credit, because they could pull that out of me, and then I was able to kind of be like, okay, I love that, and really like focus on that like dual POV, like, and pulling the like the story forward. Sorry. I apologize. My grandma's calling me on my computer.
You want to interrupt your birthday, so.
Freaking grandma, she's really excited, but yeah. So yeah, a lot has to do, like, I'd love to take credit, but a lot of it was I got help and I learned.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear that like it can be solved through editing and it doesn't have to be perfect the first time around. So that's good to know, because I feel like everyone's like, oh well, I just outline like immaculately. I'm like, oh okay, I don't do that. So I guess there's no hope for me. But there is hope, because you can just rewrite it to be perfect.
That's it. Yeah. No, I'm learning to outline, but it's hard. It's really hard.
So I'll just get out of this way. I was going to ask you a little bit later, but are you a pantser or are you a plotter?
I feel like I'm learning to do both. Because like I think you get further or different in a different like area in your career, so you kind of have to adapt. But like for Sinner's Isle, I did pants the entire thing, and it was really, really bad. And so I went back and reworked it many, 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 many times. But for like my second book, I couldn't really do that because it was under contract, and there was like a story that I needed to get on the page, and I had to pitch that story. So it was a different experience, and I felt like it worked really well. Like, not like a strict outline for me, because I really do love exploring scenes and like getting there almost organically. But for this second book that I worked on, like I knew who the characters were and I knew where I wanted them to go at the end. And so I feel like this time around it went maybe a little faster than Sinner's Isle. And also maybe because I knew I could do it this time around because of Sinner's Isle, because I knew I can do revisions, and I can do it fast, and I can really dig in. So it made it easier. So I feel like each book is going to be a totally different experience, and like maybe I'll outline like hardcore for the next one, or maybe I'll learn, nope, you can't do that. Your brain says no. So I don't know. I feel like each one's going to be different, but um I was just listening to a podcast, Turning to Story, and they were talking about like 7-layer plot dip, and and like
That's
and
fun.
it's kind of save the cat. And
Yeah.
so I feel like if you know your basic plot points, you'll get there eventually, either if you're an outliner or a pantser.
Right. Right. Perfectly said. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the magic and the world building because, oh my gosh, this was so unique and it made the stakes so high. This is one of the most high stakes books that actually makes sense with the magic and everything. And it's so integral to like the plot. So can you explain a little bit about what Majestic is and like what's at stake for Rosalinda because she is one? And
Yeah.
basically, I'm like, what's your book about in a way because she's so integral into what's going on with her.
She started it. It was all her fault. She started the whole thing. Because yeah, I knew her first, and I thought, "Oh, it'd be so cool for this girl, like her magic is she can control these like shadows, these phantoms, and they're kind of like a symbol of like her rage and anger and fear and of all of her emotions. I mean, when we
Yeah.
first meet her, you see them as that because that's how she feels and she's terrified and she wants to escape this island. But so she came first, and then I thought it'd be I just kind of came up with this like backstory of how she got her magic, and so it just kind of like morphed into, it was like a blessing from a goddess right before that goddess was basically torn down for offering these blessings to women. And um and it kind of just played with the idea of like even goddesses have to fight for their own like spot in the world.
Mm,
So yeah, Rosa really inspired the entire thing, and I just love the idea of like shadows and phantoms and like being able to control that. I just thought, oh, that's so cool. And then I just kind of started thinking of like playing with what the other Majestics, what their powers would be. Like I was just like, okay, if Rosa is so powerful because she can do this, what would the other Majestics look like? Like, what are they doing? What are their powers? And why would people want to bind themselves to have access to these things? And so we start, through revisions again, like we just played with these ideas of who they are. And I don't think I really had the world down and the magic system completely down when I first wrote it, or even like the last, like into the 5th revision. But yeah, it was like just continuing to ask yourself, well, why are they doing this? What's the purpose? And it just turned into like a really interesting kind of thing. And like I maybe because I also really just want to be a majestic, but not in the Sinner's Isle world, but I would just love to have just a little power, you know?
yeah. Especially like only women get it. I love that, very of time kind of. So yeah, we talked about how Rosalinda has the shadow magic, which if I read a lot of romantic fantasy, and it always feels like the heroes and the men have shadow magic to be like the dark, mysterious love interest, but that she does. Was that like a deliberate choice, the twist on the trope, or were you just like, oh yeah, I didn't think about that until later?
I didn't think of like a twisting the trope. I can't remember thinking it. I just thought I want her to do that. And then I just did it. I just thought, yeah, she
And it
needs to.
leads me into my next question. So if you were a majestic, what power would you want? Shadow magic?
Ooh, I honestly, like, I would love a good shadow magic. I think because I like once you sit down, you don't want to get up. And I think it'd be so nice to just be like, get me something or hand me the remote and I don't have to get up. So for that reason alone, I want some shadow magic.
Yeah. Especially Rosalinda's, because it's not so much just like she can manipulate shadows, guys. She like basically has friends and they're phantoms, and she's just like she could talk to them and be like, "Go do this, go do that."
Yeah.
They're
I
like,
mean,
I don't know,
pretty. What about you?
her friends. Ooh, well, I guess in like if it was real world, I would be like somewhere to heal or anything because like I'm sick right now, COVID. Like admit I have healing magic in my book, and I was like, yeah, that's for like plot reasons. And then like when COVID happened, I was like, this is like super important to me that like healing magic has its own like little platform of how important it is because to be sick and we faced so much during COVID, but yeah, to heal would be really nice. So
Okay, well, yours is better than mine.
no, I think yours is way more powerful and cool. So, but then like if I was in Sinner's Isle, like ooh, I don't know because again, like the girls don't have a good time. Like they're going to be like offered to these men, so it's not like oh like no consequences to all my magic, which that's why I love about your book so much. It's like there's magic, but then like there's a reason why they feel trapped and they feel isolated and they like there are consequences because like society has done such a thing to them where you rope into I don't know. I just loved it because sometimes I read books where I'm like, if you're so powerful, can you just break out yourself, please? Like, doesn't make sense why they like need like a man to help them. But I don't know, Rosalinda definitely needed allies. So
Needed them. Yeah.
needed
No, I mean, honestly, and I think that came through revisions as well
Hmm.
of my editor or whoever was just asking like, well, why can't they just go? Like you said. And so like figuring that out, like, okay, well, there is a reason why they can't just go. And so yeah, okay.
Okay. I think we only have a few more minutes, but so let me see if I want to jump to what other questions. You guys are gonna love the end. There's so many reveals. Like every chapter, there's a reveal. I was gonna ask, did those come in the moment? But I kind of feel like I have an answer. Like they happened in revision, right? Or
Yeah. I knew one major thing always. Uh,
okay. Ooh,
which I
fun.
know, you know
I
what I'm talking
think I know.
about. That was always there.
That's fun. That's fun. And then okay, so many of our listeners are always writers themselves. So what advice do you have for aspiring authors, especially the trenches nowadays?
Oh, I
Yeah.
know. I feel like my writing got so much better when I truly kind of just listened to my own voice as a writer. Like you read all these amazing books and you're like, "Oh, I want to sound like this person." And there's nothing wrong with that because that's how you learn. But I feel like I was doing it at first because I was insecure about my own writing and my own voice and if I didn't sound smart enough or if my prose didn't weren't eloquent enough. And when I stopped caring about how good I was gonna sound and just like really and truly dug into my own voice and what sounded good to me, I feel like my writing really took off for me and my creativity really took off. So my advice would be like, don't stifle yourself. Like really and truly try whatever and see what you feel in your soul works for you. And even if it's weird, like do it anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. No, like weird books are sometimes even the most popular books. So that makes
Yeah.
sense. Sometimes, the market, the industry, they want that new, fresh, different, and readers want them too. Like they want something that's like, I've never seen this before. So Sinner's Isle has all that, like familiar, like we've seen shadow magic, but like not exactly like this, and especially not in the heroine. So I love that.
Yeah.
It's like familiar, but like so unique, so different, so diverse. I love that.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think like just in pulling from all the things you love, like
Yeah.
those, and like because you can recognize those tropes, but they're done differently because you're doing it.
Yes.
Um, but feel free to pull from anything.
Yeah. I love it. And then last question, what are you working on next?
Yay! I'm so excited for this. I'm working on a completely
You can
different
say,
book.
right?
What's that?
You can say, right?
Yeah. So I'm working on something completely new. It's a different world, but it's still a young adult romantasy. And it's still fun and funny and swoony and fast paced. It's all the things. it feels very, in line with myself as a writer, like Joy Revolution. And so it's called A Cruel Thirst. And it basically follows Lalo, who is like this recently turned vampire, and he really hates it. He's really bad at it. He can't stand the sight of blood. And so he's trying to like reverse the curse.
Oh,
And in order to do that, he has to travel to this like remote town, and it just so happens to be full of vampire hunters. And he bumps into Carolina, who is like hell bent on becoming the best vampire hunter. And so you can see where they might not get along at first, him being a vampire and her wanting to murder him. So that is basically, it's like star-crossed lovers. It's like kind of like Pride and Prejudice meets Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It's really fun. It's fun.
oh wow, that sounds so good. And as soon as you said A Cruel Thirst, I'm like, is this vampires? Are we getting vampires? So great title too, because it tells you exactly what you need to know.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's all for me because I know we have questions, I believe. So let's get to some of these. Walk us through them.
Oh, I'm back. Angela, Dana, thank you so much. I had a really good time watching from behind the scenes. It was so interesting. But we do have quite a few questions to go through, so I'm just gonna go at it. We have a question from Shannon asking, what inspired this story?
I like I was saying before, I think a lot of it kind of came naturally, but truly what was happening in our world in 2020, I think bled into the story. And so a lot of the things I was just seeing and feeling and experiencing in my own life and in the world, I put it into into words. And at first, like I said, it was kind of dark, but I found the joy and like the hope. And so that's really what inspired it, was just everything. My world.
Yeah. We have a question from Inez asking, is there a character that started out as a side character but became more pivotal as you drafted?
Thank you, Inez. I appreciate that. Yeah, like I think Santi was always gonna be just the side character, but he has somehow turned into the character people have talked to me about the most. And so I'm grateful for it. I love it so much because I do love him so much. So Santi is that guy.
Those are always the best characters, in my opinion. um, we have a question from Madison asking, what was the hardest scene for you to write and also the most exciting?
Ooh, okay. The hardest, truthfully, was the first chapter. I rewrote the first chapter at least a million times, at least. I just couldn't get it right, and I didn't know how to get it all of this information into one chapter. And it's kind of long still, but like that was the hardest by far. And I think just first chapters are tough. Because you're trying to build this world and let your reader know while making it not feel like you're doing that. So it was hard. And was the question most fun?
Most exciting.
Most exciting? Any of like like there's a battle at the kind of at the end, or it feels like it's all a battle at the end, but there's like these there's a ship scene at the end, and it was really, really exciting to watch, or to watch, to write and learn how to write battle scenes was really fun.
Do you relate to your characters in any way? Which character is most like you?
I do. I relate to them all in all different ways. Even the villains, I relate to them in a certain way. I feel like Santi, I relate to maybe the most, in a way of just like you experience maybe all of these bad things, and to kind of push that aside, you lean on humor. And I tend to do that in my own personal life. And so not that it's a bad thing, but sometimes it's okay to also be vulnerable and like speak your truth. So I feel like Santi and I are bonded in that way.
What is your favorite quote from Sinner's Isle?
Oh, there's a scene, and it's on that ship scene that I'd mentioned, but it's between Santi and Mariano, and it's just them talking, and it's just this moment, and I can't say the quotes because I don't want to be spoilery, but it's towards the end, and it just brought me so much joy to write it. Um, that those are my favorite lines in the whole book. And there's some with Rosa too. There's some great ones with Rosa, but those are my favorite.
What was the most difficult part of the entire editorial process for you? Did anything surprise you as a debut author?
I feel like the most difficult was just believing that I could do it. But I feel like once I knew I could, and once I had gone through it before and I was like, "Okay, I got this. I know I can get through this." Then it became a little easier. But I feel like every time you get like an edit letter and you're reading through all the stuff that you need to do, at least for me, like I would get a little depressed, a little down of just like, oh no, like I'm never going to be able to tackle this. I'm not good enough to do this. And I would just go through this mind like headspace of like, oh no, they did a bad job of like investing in me. Like I'd be like, I should just give him back, everything. Let's just quit. Let's just stop because I can't do it. But once I would, a few days to get over that, and once I would like dig into revisions and edits again, I'd be like, oh, okay, I can do this. I could do it. But really, just getting over that initial hurdle of like, just throw it all away, like count me out. Once I got over that, we're good.
How much of you is in Rosalinda?
I don't know. I feel like she's much more brave than I probably could ever be. I feel like the way that she is fighting and doing whatever it takes to watch out for her friend and to get a better life. I love that so much in her. And maybe it's what I want the most for myself is to be able to be that brave. So in that way, like I would love to relate to her. I feel like she is who I'd love to be. So, yeah, but I relate in her sassiness and just like the friendships that she makes. I love her for that.
Okay, well, this is going to be the last question of the night. The people want to know, will you be calling your grandma back?
Yeah, I better call grandma back because grandma gets sassy. So I have to, yes, I will call grandma. Grandma, if you're listening, which I know you're not because you don't know how to do anything on the computer, I will call you back, grandma. Promise.
Well, Angela, Dana, thank you both so much. This was so interesting. And to the audience, thank you for your questions. Everyone, please know that there's a green button below our faces where you can buy the book. Please do so. And I think I'm going to call it a night. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.